Shalom, shalom. What's good? What's good? Yeah, I know y'all see the title. We see the title, right? Um, so yeah, what we're gonna do? We're gonna talk a little bit about this, like the title says, cycle of life, right? About us living and dying and all the extra stuff, and then the whole kingdom thing, right? Uh, the get touch on a little bit about the concept of heaven and hell and all that stuff, right? Um, So yeah, we even though we kind of touched on this topic before, so we just gonna go back into it, what I'm saying, and from a perhaps like a different angle or whatever, right? Because like I said, because we have to reprogram ourselves, due to the brainwashing that we receive, at these churches that we go to. So it's important that we actually know the truth of the Bible, because what it say, the truth shall set you free, right? So it's important to know the truth of the matter, so that way we can better understand this thing that we're going through. So of course, all praises to the Most High. We do so in His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, right? So with that being said, let's get right into it, right? We're gonna just jump right into Ecclesiastes, uh, Ecclesiasticus, right? I mean, let's see. Hold on one second. Get there. I mean, Ecclesiastes, right? We're gonna start at Ecclesiastes, uh, chapter 1. We're gonna start at 4, right? So now this is talking about cycles, right? So let's see. It says, "One generation passeth, and another generation cometh, but the earth abides forever," right? So what that means is, you know, these generations, they one generation passed, then the next generation comes, so they come in cycles. Think about it like plants in the springtime. Like you have a certain type of flower that's in an area. It comes there every year around spring, but then fall, winter, it starts to die out. Then spring come back around again, it's in the same spot again. So that's how we are. One generation go and the next generation come in, right? And we keep cycling like that. That's why a lot of times we feel like we've been here before. You had those feelings, or like you've been around, or they see a baby and somebody will say that baby has an old soul, right? So it says, "One generation passeth, and the other generation cometh, but the earth abides forever. The sun also, the sun also arise, and the sun goes down, and hasn't to his place where he rose, right? And hasten to his place where he rose. The wind go towards the south and turn about unto the north, a whirl about continually. The wind return again according to its circuits," right? So, like we said, so we're seeing how the natural order of things is to recycle and come back, right? Like I was telling a brother about a couple of weeks ago, that's why it's important to have children, because through our children, and chiefly through our children, but of course, other members of your immediate family, if they have kids, that's how we come back on this earth. You know, that's how we get regenerated back onto this planet, through our children. Because when our children have children, your spirit, comes back into, one of those descendants that is being born. You know, that's why too, when somebody died a while back, like a grandfather or father, then a child is like, then that child is there, then you like, this child remind me just like how their father was, or just how their grandfather was, and so forth, right? Because the spirit gets recycled, right? So it says, all the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not filled full until the place from whence the river comes, hither they go, hither they return. So it's telling you that even the natural orders of the river and the seas, the rivers run into the ocean, but then the ocean never gets over full because the water gets recycled back again. It goes back through whatever channels it go through and go right back towards the river again, right? So it says, all things are full of labor, man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. Meaning, it's always a lot of stuff going on in the world that we're not going to always fully understand. That's why we always constantly seeking knowledge and trying to you know take an ear to wisdom, so we can get some more understanding of the things that we're saying, that we're seeing, right? So that's why it says all things are full of labor. Meaning it's a lot of work you got to put into to try to understand these things. All things are full of labor. A man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. So, like we said, that's dealing with, you know, this big vast world that we live in. It's a lot of information, a lot of things going on. We're not going to necessarily understand everything all at once, right? Then, the thing that has been, it is, which shall be, and which is done, is that which shall be done. So meaning things, don't go like Albert Einstein said it best. Energy can't be destroyed. You know, it just transfers, right? So this is basically what it's saying in the biblical way. It says the thing that has been, it is. Meaning something that was in the past, it is right now. Because then it says that is that's which shall be, and that which is done, that which shall be done. So meaning, things come and go, and it recycles, and it started off by talking about generations, meaning people. So it's giving you an analogy of how we are regenerated and recycled through this earth, right? And some people would say, well, yeah, you live, then, you try to do things right, then you keep being reborn until you, learn your lesson or whatever, right? That's how some people explain it. Even though I don't subscribe to that methodology, but I mean, I know like a lot of people. That's probably it's an easy way to to explain it, but you know, instead of it's just the fact that we keep coming back. That's just how it goes. So then it says boom boom boom. I'll read it one more time. The thing that has been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun. So that includes us. There's no new thing under the sun. Like we demonstrated earlier about how, you can have a child and you say, well, that child has an old soul, or that child remind me of my grandfather or my father, because those spirits come right back. That's why it's important to have children, right? Because your children is going to have children. Then, like I said, that's how we get recycled, right? There is no remembrance of the former things, neither shall there be any remembrance of things that come with those that shall come after. So that's why when you're reborn into whatever life that you were born in whatever time, you don't remember what you did in your last, lifetime, but you had that feeling that you've been here before, but you don't have that memory of what you did, right? So, but we're reborn. So let's jump up to chapter 3 real quick. We start at 1, and it says, "To everything there's a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven," right? And what's under the heaven? The earth. So it's telling you everything is a season. So we just got done reading in chapter 1 how things get regenerated. Then we also illustrated through this observing flowers in the springtime that it's always the same certain type of flowers that regrow again in the spring after they die off in the winter, right? Let's jump down to 16. It says, "And moreover, I saw under the sun the place of judgment." So here we go. The place of judgment. We get judged for what we done on earth, right? You die and explain like this. Um, so when you die, your spirit goes back to the Father, right? He judges you. Then after whatever punishment or blessing he give you, then you reborn again on this earth, however long the time may be that passed, and then you live out those judgments, whether they're good or bad. So whatever you're going through in your life is because of what you have done in your past life, right? So that's how judgment works, because it says, "And moreover, I saw under the sun the place of judgment, that the wickedness that wickedness was there, in the place of righteousness that was iniquity, the place in the place of righteousness that iniquity was there." So the good and the bad get judged, you know, and then like we said, depending on how you live your life in one life, time, then when you come back again, you're gonna live out those judgments, right? In your new life. Because that's how it goes. Because it tells you in Second Esdras that God's judgment is like a ring; it goes around, or how we might say nowadays, what goes around, come around, right? So let's get a boom boom. Let's go to Deuteronomy real quick. Let's go to Deuteronomy 32 and 21, right? So Deuteronomy 32 and 21 says, "They have moved me to jealousy with that which is not God." Because some of our people be involved in these other religions and following all type of adultery and all that stuff, idolatry. So it says, "They have moved me to jealousy with which was that which is not God. They have provoked me to anger with their vanities, and I will move them to jealousy with those who are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with foolishness, with a foolish nation." And that's the state that we're in now, right? So we're in that state, because we have some people that's claim to be Jews that had the little curly stuff on the side of their head and they wear the little saucers on their head, right? So we're being provoked to jealousy because we see how these other nations interact with each other. Then we like, how come we can't be like that? How come we can't, deal with each other like how they deal with each other, right? So that's why it says, um, I'm gonna read it from the top. "They have moved me to jealousy with that which is not God. They have provoked me to anger with their vanity. I will move them to jealousy." So the them is us. So he said he's gonna make us be jealous of these other nations and how they get down, right? And he says, "I have moved them to jealousy with those which are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation. And these people that run everything, they are a foolish nation. When you look at them in totality, you see how they conduct themselves. We always talk about how they have no rhythm, no coordination. You know, all this stuff. That just the whole overall quirkiness of them. They're just bland. You know, this unseasoned people, for the lack of better words. So, and we know this, and the fact that I'm talking like this now demonstrate this verse that we just read, that He will move us to jealousy, right? To what it says, with anger, anger with a foolish nation. So these people are foolish, and we know that these people have no business running things. Because look how they run in the world. They run in the world to they you know you see the detriment that they did since they've been controlling the world. Got pollution, they killing all the animals, like down there all the damn animals is extinct. They poisoning food, poisoning water. So this is what they do when they in control. So this is a foolish nation that we have to be under and follow, right? Then it says, for it for a fire is kindled in my anger, and shall burn until the lowest hell, right? So now this is the point. So now we kind of get into the subject of the the heaven and hell thing, right? So we kind of briefly went over how we are regenerated and we recycled back onto this earth. So it says, "For a fire is kindled in my anger, and shall burn unto the lowest hell, and shall consume the earth with her increase, and set fire the foundation of the mountains." So now, when you understand biblical terminology, whenever the Bible is talking about mountains, it's not literally always talking about a literal physical mountain. The word mountain is also to describe nations. So in this context, it is talking that it's saying that let me read again. For the fire is kindled in my anger, and shall burn unto the lowest hell, and shall consume the earth with her increase, and set fire the foundations of the mountain. So when God judged this world, like I said, He's going to put them in a state of hell, meaning destruction, meaning a lower state, hard times, right? You know, those type of like stuff like that, right? That's what it's talking about. It's not talking about a physical place where the devil is waiting to poke you with a pitchfork in hell. It's talking about hard conditions, struggling, you know, like whole communities being very, you know, being destroyed. Sort of like how ours is, right? We are living in hell, right? When you can go outside and see like all the little drug addicts and alcoholics all scattered out through the streets, run down neighborhoods, uh, black on black crime, people killing each other, the gang violence, all that stuff. Our parents being locked up in the prison systems, that is hell, right? And then it says, and I will heap up mischief upon them. I will heap up, where am I? Boom. I will heap mischief upon them. I will spin my arrows upon them, right? So now, mischief meaning, bad fortune, So now, so like I said, if you were in hell, you're already suffering. So if this was like a literal physical hell, you're already suffering because with how they teach you in church, you're getting burnt by fire and all that stuff forever. But God said He's going to heap up mischief. So this is not a literal dominion. This is talking about conditions that people is living in, the state of minds that people are being in, right? So it says, "I will heap up mischiefs upon them. I will spin my arrows upon them. They shall be burnt with hunger, and devoured with a burning heat." So I mean, you in hell, you getting burnt by fire. That's horrible enough. But now you're gonna be stricken with hunger. See, that's what we gotta understand. That's why we have to read this book with proper understanding to understand that it's not talking about a physical location when it's talking about hell. It's talking about conditions, right? So he's talking about right here famine, lack of resources to be able to feed yourself. Then it says, with burning heat and with bitter destruction, I will also send the teeth of wild beasts upon them, with poison of serpents of the dust, right? So, like I said, it's just speaking on putting people in a certain condition that's jacking them up, right? Then it says, the sword without and terror within shall destroy both uh, young and the virgin, and both young man and the virgin. The suck the suckling also with the man with gray hairs. So God is talking about He's going to bring war and devastation to a certain group of people, right? You know, so this is not talking about, again, it's not talking about a physical location, because we see that it's talking about a condition in a way of life that some people is going to be subject to. So it says the sword without, meaning, even if that certain people is not in that certain locale or whatever he's pronouncing judgment on, if they try to escape and go there, so the sword without is going to get you. Then it says, and terror within. So then it says, well, let me break that down right. So basically, like I said, the sword is basically, like I said, is war. So then not only are you going to be facing war and devastation and people trying to take your life, you're also going to be mentally tormented on the inside. That's why it says, "In terror within shall destroy both young man and the virgin, the suckling also with the old man with hairs." So it's talking about babies going through it, and then even to the old, right? So it says, I said I will scatter them unto the corners. I will make the remembrance of them to cease from among men. And that's what happened to our people. This is describing the conditions of our people. This is the hell that we are in. Because we have been scattered through all the four corners of the earth. You know, because of war, conquest, and the transatlantic slave trade, right? So it says, I will scatter them unto the corners, which is north, south, east, west, right? I will make the remembrance of them cease from among men. That's why everybody got a nickname for us, or calling us niggas, calling us coons, calling us black, African American, colored, Afro American, after a hairstyle. All these different names that they come to us with, right? Because what it says, the remembrance of them to cease from among men, meaning people not gonna, that's why a lot of them, when you try to tell them that we are Israelites, when you try to tell them that we are the people of the book, they look at us like we're crazy, right? Even our own people think that we're crazy when we say that we are God's chosen people, right? Because it says the remembrance of them to cease from among men. Where uh, where where it's not that I fear the wrath of the enemy, lest their adversaries should behave themselves strangely, and unless they should say, our hand is high, and the Lord have not done all of this. So God is saying, I'm telling you this is going to happen to you. So when it does happen to you, you know that I'm the one that's doing it to you. And your enemies or whoever, they can't brag and say that I did it, because I'm telling you that I'm the one that's going to put you in this situation. And now we living in that time, and we've been going through that time that we have been through slavery. Our people have got war raged against them. We have been scattered to all four corners of the earth. So this is a prophecy that we can visibly see. and it's describing a condition called hell, right? So we got to understand that. So it's not, like I said, a devil is not nowhere with a pitchfork trying to poke you. And we went over this. We kind of touched on this a few weeks ago, when we was talking about the devil and the angels, right? And so we went over that in that video. So we see it again, that what we've been taught that hell is, that it's actually a horrible condition that people go through, right? So let's get where I want that. Let's get Second Samuel's, right? Try to go through the Second Samuel's 22 and 6, right? So Second Samuel's 22 and 6 says, "The sorrow of hell compassed me about." So now this is David talking, right? So was David in hell? Was he down there with with Satan and a pitchfork burning in fire? Was he? No, because David, David was one of God's favorite too, right? So it says the sorrows of hell compass me about, the snares of death prevent me. So David is talking about hell, meaning in the context of horrible stuff is happening to him. Then it says the snares of death prevented me, meaning these people that's out to kill him, that's trying to take his life from him. That's hell. And a lot of our people live through that today. A lot of people got what they call ops. They can't go in certain neighborhoods in fear that somebody's gonna try to kill them or hurt them. You know what I'm saying? Like you watch that Crip Mac nigga. He'd be out on the streets, but then he always be talking about who that. I don't know who that. I don't know who that is, cuz. You know what I'm saying? Because he always got to look, around to see, when he out there, because he looking like a walking target. Got all blue on, got a big ass 55 on his face. So he like, who that? Who? I don't know who that is, cuz. That's her to get out of this spot right here, cuz. You know what I'm saying? So it says, the sorrow of hell compass me about, the snare of death prevents me. In my distress, I call upon the Lord and cry to my God. So just think about how the Christian church teach you about hell. You're in hell burning forever. You're not allowed to call to God because you're in hell burning forever. That's what they will teach you. But David started off by saying, the sorrows of hell compass me about, the snares of death prevent me. In my distress, I call upon the Lord and cry to my God. And he did hear my voice out of his temple, and my cry did enter into his ears. Right? So we got to understand this whole concept of hell. It comes from Greek mythology. Christianity is nothing but Greek mythology uh, with Bible symbolisms. That's it. It has nothing to do with it. And when you understand the whole genesis, the whole creation of Christianity, going back to Constantine, you will get what I'm saying, that it's pagan. It has nothing to do with the Bible. That's why I tell people all the time, write down everything you know about Christianity. Then read the Bible and see, can you check off the list of the things to say, oh, well, yeah, this is there. Yep, that's there. Yep, that. You will not be able to do that, because what you learn in Christianity is not in this book. And if we've been following along, we will know that what we have learned in these churches has nothing to do with the Bible. When you go to church, you are listening to a motivational speaker with a Bible in their hand. I challenge anybody to Google a motivational speaker. YouTube a video of a motivational speaker. Right? and listen to them talk. Then think about all the church sermons that you went to and listen to pastor talk. There's no difference. Only difference is he used words like Jesus and God every so often. That's the only difference. So we gotta come out this slumber, this sleep, because everybody talking about being woke, but we still sleep. Because we don't understand that we are still being duped with the slave master's religion called Christianity, right? So let's get let's go to Job. Let's go to our dear brother Job 11:8 real quick. Hold on, Salaki. Ah, yeah, my bad, Salaki. So let's go to Job 11:8, and it says, "It is as high as heaven. What canst thou do? Deeper than hell. What what canst thou do?" Right. So this is talking about, you know, because hell also just means the grave, right? And then heaven, in certain contexts, means the sky. So, like I was telling my guy the other day, yesterday, um, there's three biblical definitions of heaven. You have heaven, like what we see in the sky, like the sun, the moons, the stars. That's heaven. Then you have heaven, where God lives, right, where His dominion is. Then you have heaven that is on earth, meaning rulerships and kingdoms and dominion. Like right now, we living in the white man's heaven, right? Because he has dominion over this world. He can go anywhere on this planet, and nobody's going to touch him. He's going to be respected, and everybody knows not to harm this white man because there's going to be some consequences and repercussions, right? A white man can walk down a black neighborhood with a briefcase 10 o'clock at night, and nobody messes with him. But let you walking down 10 o'clock at night with a briefcase, they're going to try to rob you and take your briefcase from you, right? And see what you got in it. So this is what they say a white man's heaven, or how our uh, our elders would say, this is a white man's heaven, right? Or this is a white. I mean, this is a white man's world, you know. So we know these things, but we're not applying those logics to everyday things to figure this stuff out. So I'm gonna read it one more time. Uh, in that, where am I? Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, what I want. Says, it is as high as heaven. What canst thou do? Deeper than hell. What can't thou do? Right. So now this is Job speaking. Right. So now let's jump up to chapter 26 of Job. Right. So we went there to show that heaven in that context is talking about the sky. Job is describing something that's as high as heaven, then as deep as is deep in the ground. That's why he called hell, because hell is considered to be in the ground. And Hebrew context, hell is also talking about the grave. That's what we have to understand. You're reading a Hebrew Bible written by Israelites who spoke Hebrew. So you have to know what they're talking about. We cannot take our English understanding of words and apply it to a Hebrew text. You're going to miss out on a lot of stuff that's actually being said because you're taking our westernized ideas and trying to place it in a Middle Eastern custom. It does not work, right? That's like trying to take a triangle and put it into a shape of a rectangle, trying to make the triangle fit inside of a rectangle. It doesn't match, right? So let's go to 22 and 26. I'm sorry, 26 and 6, right? So it says, hell is naked before me, meaning hell is open, destruction, hard times, bad stuff happening. Hell is naked before him, and destruction have no covering, right? So again, we see that this hell is talking about the grave and hard times. You know, because Job, when you read the book of Job, Job was going through it, right? So Job was thinking that, he could probably die from what he's going through. So that's why he's like, man, hell is open up to me, meaning the grave is open up to me, right? So he's talking about hell is being open, right? So so we see that, right? We see the concepts of in the Hebrew culture what these words mean, right? So let's go to Psalms. Let's go to Psalms 19:7, right? Go to Psalms 19:7. No, I'm sorry, 9:7. Hold on one second. Yeah, my bad. So Psalms 19. I'm keep saying 19. Psalms 9:17. It says, "The wicked shall turn into hell, and all the nations that forgot God." Right. So this right here, we was to take the understanding of Christianity literally about hell. It says the wicked shall be turned into hell, meaning people that do wickedly is going to be turned into hell, and all the nations that forget God. So that means all these nations are just going to be hell, right? No, it's talking about conditions, meaning they're going to be utterly destroyed when the third war's war kick off. When God come and judge this earth, they're going to be destroyed. So they're going to be living in hell because everything that they know and love is going to be destroyed, right? When this war kick off. And if we've been paying attention to the news, we know World War III is right around the corner. It is cooking up, and it's almost done cooking. All these nations is doing their best to get into position and ready for war, right? Like it tells you in Jeremiah 50:22, uh, the sound of battle is in the land, right? So we got to understand this stuff, right? So let's get let's go to 16. 16. Let's jump up to chapter 6, Psalm 16:10, right? And it says, For thou wilt not leave my soul in hell, neither wilt thou suffer thy holy ones to see corruption." Right? So this is David. Was David in hell? No. He was going through hard times because people were trying to kill him. When you read the story, people were after his life. David was on the run. So once again, hell is being described as a condition, right? Not a place that you go to and just die and burn forever, right? Because we read in Ecclesiastes that judgment take place on earth, and we explain whatever you did in your last life is being played out in your current life. So when you die this time, whatever you God judge you on when you be born again in your next lifespan, you're gonna live out those judgments, right? That's how it goes. So whatever you're going through now is because of what you did the last time you were on this planet. That's why we feel like we've been here before. That's why we had those emotions like, or we see little babies and we say, oh, this person has a old soul, right? We say those things, right? Hold on one second. Yeah, what's good? What's good out there? So and I appreciate that too. Um, cause that's all we're trying to do. We're just trying to give the proper understanding of stuff that we've been misinformed about, right? So let's continue, right? So it says where we at 16? Boom, boom, boom. We read it again. For thou will not leave my soul in hell, neither will thou suffer thy holy ones to see corruption. Thou wilt show me the path to life in thy presence of the fullness of joy. At thy right hand there is no pleasure for evermore. I'm sorry. There are pleasure for evermore. Right. So we see how you know like I said. So we see that David was not in hell. I mean, if anybody with a little understanding of the Bible would know that David never went to hell, but they know that he was running for his life because he had an army after him trying to kill him. He had Saul and his goons were trying to get at him. So he was living out on the in the outskirts, trying to do whatever he had to do to survive. Right? He had to leave his family, and all that stuff, and be on the run. So we know these things. So let's get 86. Let's jump all the way up to 86. Psalms 86 and 13 says, "For this is thy mercy towards me, and thou hast delivered my soul from the lowest hell." Again, this is David saying that now he's acknowledging that he's coming out of those hard times that he was going through. He's no longer facing those troubles that he was facing. He said that for this, for great is thy mercy. Hold on, where I'm go back at third. Yeah, for great is thy mercy towards me. Thou hast delivered my soul from the lowest from the lowest hell. Right. So again, if we was to take the Christian understanding of hell, the Greek mythology understanding of hell, you can't be delivered. Once God sentences you to hell, you cannot come out of hell because that's where you're going to be at for eternity. Or eternity means forever. But we see that David is saying, "For great is thy mercy towards me, and thou hast delivered my soul from the lowest hell." Right? So we see that hell is not a place that we die and go to, and the devil is just waiting for us, and he just poking us with a pitchfork and all that cool stuff. It don't go down like that. Hell is a condition. Hell is what we go through in our life, right? So we can see those things. Let's get let's go to Proverbs real quick. Let's go to Proverbs 5 and 3, right? So it says, "For the lips of a strange woman drop as honeycombs, and her mouth is smoother than oil." So now this is talking about what we might call one of those women that like to play on people. You know what I'm saying? Playing with people's emotions, right? You know, for lack of better words. But her end is wormwood, meaning wormwood is bitterness and hardship, and this another word for also meaning slavery, right? Or all out hell. But her end is wormwood, meaning if you deal with this woman, she's probably gonna end up how we nowadays would say child support. You know, probably you know kick you out the house, get you arrested for whatever reason, right? So it says, "For the lips of a strange woman," meaning this woman that you're not too familiar with, you don't know how she really is. It says, "For the lips of a strange woman drop as honeycombs, and her mouth is smoother than butter, smoother than oil." Meaning she know how to talk to you. She know how to get you, thinking, you know, she running her game, right? So then it says, but her end is bitter as wormwood, sharper than a two-edged sword. Because now she cursing you out and cutting you to the bone because you love this person, but now she know how to hurt you, right? So then it says, then it says, lest thou should ponder the path of life, her ways are movable, that thou canst not know them. Meaning she's, you know, she's a busybody, right? So you can't really figure her out. She's not, you know, you know, you can't, like I said, you can't figure her out, basically, right? And so then it says, and then she's, always on the go. Then it says, lest thou should, then it says, hear me now, therefore, O ye children, depart from, depart not from the words of my mouth, remove thy ways far from her, and come not nigh the door of her house. Meaning, like, don't, don't deal with that type of woman, right? Then it says, lest thou be given honor unto another, and heirs unto the cruel, right? Then it says, yeah, the heir unto the cruel, lest the stranger be filled with, unless the strangers be filled with thy wealth, and thy labor be in the house of a stranger. So basically, so now it's explaining like how dealing with in a relationship and you not being able to see eye to eye with a person, that can also be considered hell, right? So we can see the different, so we see the different context of hell, right? So we see these things. Then let's get boom 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 boom. Let's go to Jonah. Let's go to Jonah. I mean, because we all somewhat familiar, with the book of Jonah too, also, right? So let's see what's up with Jonah. So let's go to Jonah 2:2, right? So now this is the book of Jonah, chapter 2, verse 2. And I said, I cried by reason of my affliction unto the Lord, and he heard me out of the belly of hell. So Jonah was swallowed by a whale, right? And then him being swallowed by a whale, he's saying that he was in hell. He said the belly of hell. So was he in a physical place where a devil was poking him and he's burning forever? No. His life was in the line because he was trapped in the stomach of a whale. Right? So he said, I had said I cried by reason of my affliction unto the Lord, and he heard me out of the belly of hell I cried, and thou hearest my voice. Right? For thou had cast me unto the deep in the midst of the sea, and the floods compassed me about, all my billows and thy waves pass over me. Right? So Job was living. Job was in the well for 3 days, and he said that is hell. Right? So we see that hell is being put in a certain predicament. Right? A certain predicament of despair. Right? That is what it is. Right? So let's let's jump up to, let's go all the way to the beginning with it. Let's go to Genesis. Let's go to Genesis, right? Um, Genesis, we're going chapter 1 and 8. So it says, and God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day, right? So now the firmament, which we would call the sky, the sun, where the sky and all that stuff at, that is called heaven, right? So we see again heaven, like I explained earlier, that heaven is, it could be where God lives at, and it also can be the sky, and it also can mean rulership and dominion on the earth, right? So we see in this context, heaven is being described as the sky, right? So let's go to let's jump up to chapter 11. So chapter 11 says, "For they said, Go and let us build us a city in a tower whose top may reach unto the heavens." So now this is the ancient Babylonians during Nimrod time, right? And they're talking about just build a tower so tall that it reaches up to heaven like a skyscraper, right? So again, heaven is talking about the sky, and it's being illustrated to show how tall they want to build this building, right? So it says, let's jump to 14. Let's jump up to 14. So 14 and 19, right? 14 and 19 says, "And he blessed him and called, he blessed him and said, Blessed be Abraham of the Most High, the uh, possessor of heaven and earth." So now it's talking about God. Said he's the possessor of heaven and earth, meaning now it's talking about his dominion, where God lives at, heaven, right? Where the angels and all that stuff. He said he's the possessor of heaven and earth, right? So we can see that we're not reading some place that people will go to when they die, because you die, like we read in Ecclesiastes, you die, you get judged, then whatever your judgment is, you live it out in your next life. You know, when you get born again as a baby, then whatever you go through throughout your lifespan is because what you did in your last life. It's simple, right? But when we, like I said, been brainwashed as we've been brainwashed, and a lot of us don't like to read the book, you know. So a lot of those concepts get, missed. So we don't understand like what's really being said to us, right? So it says, let's get boom boom boom. Let's get Exodus, right? No, let's jump up to 27. Let's go to 27 first. Let's jump up to Genesis 27 and 28. Oops. So Genesis 27 and 28 says, "Therefore God give me the dew of heaven, and the fatness of the earth, and plenty of corn and wine." Right? So now this is talking about the blessing of our ancestor Jacob, right? And so it says the dew of heaven. So then when you think about that, you know, technically, like the dew is like the moisture when you see on the grass in the morning, when you wake up in the morning and you might touch the grass, even though it haven't rained or anything, but that natural moisture that be on the grass, that's the dew. That comes from that comes overnight. You know what I'm saying? So, but in this context, it's talking about that God is going to bless him, bless our ancestors, which is us. We're going to be the ones that be the recipients of this blessing. It says, "Therefore God give thee the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth and plenty of corn and wine," meaning we're going to be good. We're going to be straight. We're going to have dominion because dew covers all of the ground, right? So we're going to, not just Israel is going to be our home. This whole damn world is going to be ours. Wherever we go is going to be our home. What they say, Papa was a rolling stone. Wherever he laid his hat was his home, right? Just like we said earlier about how white people are good because this is their kingdom. They can go anywhere on the planet and be good, right? Because people know not to harm that white person because there's going to be consequences and repercussions, right? Because when you get into the story of Jacob and Esau, we technically got the same blessing, right? But the only difference between our blessing, God is just going to give it to us, right? All we have to do is keep the laws. But Esau, which is the so-called white man, Caucasian, he has the same blessing, but he's going to have to get it with war and with the sword. That's why everywhere he goes, he murders and kills everybody. He can't help it. Anywhere you can think where they live at, they killed the original inhabitants over there to take it. And so they have the best places, areas on the planet because they stole it. That's that's the difference. We have the same blessing. I can read this blessing of Jacob to go to where talk about Esau's blessing. We see that they're the same, but only one difference is that the clause in Esau's, that he's gonna have to get it with the sword. He's gonna have to get it. And the modern day sword is the gun, right? So that's the only difference. So, but with us, the Lord is just gonna give it to us because that's just what it is, right? All we have to do is keep the faith and follow the commandments. But these people have to live their life as a violent murderer to receive the goodness of this earth, right? So that's the difference, right? So, and they only gonna be allowed to do that for so long, because like it tells you right here, just jumping off subject, not really, but really, it says, you start at 21, and Isaac entreated the Lord for his wife. She was barren, and the Lord was entreated of him, and Rebekah's wife conceived. Right. So Isaac was trying to get his wife pregnant. He asked the Lord, "Can you make it so that my wife can have a baby?" Uh, and the children struggled together within her. And she said, "If this be so, why am I dust?" So she's like, "Man, if this is a gift from God, why am I having so much pain during my pregnancy?" Because some women, when they're pregnant, they stomach beat, they going through pains. They got to go to the doctor, to see and make sure everything is straight with the baby. So she was going through that. So she's like, if this is, God blessed this pregnancy, why am my stomach hurting so much? Basically. Then it says, and she went to inquire of the Lord, and the Lord said unto her, two nations are in thy womb, two manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. So just read that again. It says, two nations are in thy womb, meaning these two people are going to come out and form two different nations. One is going to be Esau and the Edomites, the so called Caucasians, no matter what they want to call themselves, whether they French, uh, Spanish. What I mean by Spanish, I'm talking about the ones that come from Spain, not our Mexican brothers and sisters down there in Mexico. I'm talking about the real Spaniards. Uh, Whether they're Spaniards, uh, Russians, Poland, American, whatever they want to call themselves these days. It says they're going to be a separate nation, and we are going to be the Israelites, right? And it says, and the Lord said unto her, two nations are in thy womb, and two manner of people, meaning we're not going to be the same type of people, even though we're twins, but we're not going to act the same way. And we know that because they like to do extreme shit. We like to chill, right? We just want to chill, drink, have some cookouts, just relax, right? For the most part, unless you messing with us. But them, they like to go fight bears. You know what I'm saying? They want to wrestle alligators. They want to jump out of airplanes. You know, they want to do all the crazy shit. They want to try to see if they can go to the bottom of the ocean. That's what they try to do. We ain't worried about all that. We just want to chill, right? So it says, two manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels, and one people shall be stronger than the other. And we know that is. We are the best athletes. We're physically dominant over them, right, in every way. Physically, mentally, and spiritually, might I add. And it says, and then and stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. Then it says, and when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb, and the first came out red, all over like a hairy garment. So it's talking about Esau. Because we know when white babies are born, they're born pinkish red, right? So after that came out his brother, and his hand took hold to Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob. So we notice they didn't describe Jacob's color because Jacob looked like everybody else when they're born. But Esau came out like how white babies are look when they're born. Come out red. You can see the blood all through their skin, right? And the two boys grew, and Esau was a hunting hunter. So we know these people like to hunt. We know they kill animals for fun. That's what they do. Like we will kill an animal if we in danger and we're capable of doing it, but they will go and seek out a lion and try to kill this lion for no damn reason. They will go out to the forest and try to seek a bear to kill this bear for no damn reason. We don't do stuff like that. It says, and the boys grew, and not only that, and that's just showing you how he's a natural killer, right? That's what he does. He's a natural born killer, like that movie with Woody Harrelson back in the day. Natural born killers, like that Ice Cube song. Natural born killers. That's what we're dealing with. And the boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter, a man of the field. And Jacob was a plain man, dwelling in tents. So that's what we like to do. We like to keep it plain. We don't want to stir up nothing. We don't want to do nothing too crazy. You know what I'm saying? You got a few of us that like to get into certain things, but for the most part, we just chill, right? So that's what we got to understand. You know what's going on here, right? Let's get back to what was I with that? Let's go to Exodus. We can go to Exodus real quick. Let's go to Exodus 20:4, right? So, cause we see like, so our blessing was to be, it says like the dew of heaven, and we know the dew of heaven, like I said, it covers the whole ground, right? So let's get Exodus 20:4. It says, "Thou should not make." This is one of the commandments. It says, "Thou should not make unto thee any graven image or likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in earth beneath, or that is in the water underneath." Right? So this is a law that we're not supposed to make images to worship, like far as like the sun and the moon and the stars, or whether they're birds or something that's flying in the sky of heaven, right? Or two, also we're not supposed to try to make images of what we think God looked like or nothing, right? So we can see that this in the context of this verse right here that is heaven is something that is visible to us, because if we're going to make an image of something, we have to have visibility of it, right? Then it says above, or that is beneath, above the earth or beneath, or that is the in the water underneath the earth, right? So just letting you know, it's the context, because it explains it went from heaven, meaning like what we can see, the sun, the moons, the stars. Then also it said even stuff on the earth, like animals or whatever, people. Then it says stuff underwater. So we see the context when it mentions heaven. It's talking about the sky that we can see with our eyes, right? So we see that, right? Let's go to Deuteronomy 4, right? So Deuteronomy 4:19, lest thou lift up thy eyes unto heaven, and thou seest the sun and the moon and the stars, and even the hosts of heaven. So again, it's letting you know that the stars and the moon and the sun is in heaven, right? And God is telling us not to worship these things. Then he says, then in the next one it says, even the host of heaven. So now it's talking about what we would call angels, right? So now you're not supposed to be worshiping angels like they do in the Catholic Church, right? Then it's, or any other type of spirits. Thou should be driven to worship them and serve them, which the Lord thy God has divided unto all nations under the whole earth. So God is saying, don't worship the sun and the moon and the stars and create you angels and calling them gods. I have divided that to the nations, meaning he gave that to the nations. So basically saying that these other nations have their own God. But we're supposed to worship him and not do what the other nations do. We're supposed to just worship him because he gave the nations their God to worship. So, but we see here in the context that why I bring it out is the fact that it's showing you that heaven is the sun, moon, and the stars, right? So let's get let's go to 10, right? Let's jump up to chapter 10 in Deuteronomy. 10 and 14 says, "Behold, the heaven and earth, the heaven in the heavens of heavens." So now it's telling you the heavens, meaning what we can see, and the heavens of heavens, talking about where God lives at, right? So it's showing you the difference. But it's never told you that, and we read a few times about the heaven that God resides at, and it never tells you that we go there, right? Then it says, "Behold, the heaven and the heaven of heavens is the Lord's, thy God, and the earth also, which which all that therein." Right. So we see that it's telling you that it's making a distinction of these different heavens, right? So just so again, let's go to no, let's go to 27. Wait, no, my bad. Let's go to 25. Same chapter, same book, Deuteronomy. Go to 25. Go to 25 and 19. And it says, "Therefore it shall be when the Lord thy God have given thee rest from all thy enemies from around about in the land which the Lord thy God hath given thee from an inheritance to possess it, thou shalt blot out the remembrance of Amalek," which is the so-called people with this on the side of their heads and the saucers on the top of their head, uh, "from under the heavens. Thou thou shalt not forget." So God is telling us when we, get into our glory, our power, and when we're back to what we're supposed to be, is a certain group of people that we're gonna have to get rid of, right? And a little bit off topic, but since we did read this verse, let's see why. Let's go all the way to Revelation. So this is the Bible that we're reading. So people gotta understand this. It's not your Christian church where you singing and dancing and uh, just telling you stuff to make you feel good so you can go in your pockets and give them all this money. Or give them all your money, right? Let's see this. There's two verses real quick. "I know thy works and tribulations and poverty, because the real Jews, the real Israelites, are in poverty collectively. But thou art rich, and we're rich because we have next. The kingdom belongs to us. That's why we're rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not." So when it says here, "Thou shalt blot out the remembrance of Amalek." Amalek is the biblical name for those J-wish people, right? That is their biblical nationality. It says, "Thou shalt blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. Thou shalt not forget it." So that God is telling us not to forget the fact that we have to get rid of these people. Because number one, they stole our identity. They're going around reaping the benefits from the rest of the world. Got America giving them billions of dollars each year because they think they are the real people of God. Now just imagine if people understood that we were the real people of God. Like the stuff that we all the money and all that stuff that these countries is giving them will be going to the real people. But it says here again, "I know thy works and tribulations and poverty, but thou art rich." And I know the blasphemy of them that which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogues of Satan. That's who they are, the synagogues of Satan, the chief house of Satan. So we see that the devil is not somebody with a red suit on and a pitchfork burning you with fire. Let's go to the next chapter real quick. And get back to what we was doing. Behold, I will. This is chapter 3 and verse 9. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan. We just read who they are, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. They do lie. Behold, I will make them come and worship before thy feet. So God is going to break these people down to the common denominator, to the point where they worship at our feet. They're going to bow down. Come and worship at your feet and know that I have loved thee. So God is going to make them know that he's not their God. He's only our God, and he's going to see, and they're going to see that God loved us, not them. Right? Now back to the lesson. I just have to read that because we read that right there. So let's go to 30, right? Let's go to chapter 30. Same book, Deuteronomy 30 and 1. We start at 1. It says, and it shall come to pass when all these things are come upon thee, the blessings and the curse which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all nations, whether the Lord thy God have driven thee, and shall return unto the Lord thy God, and shall obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children with all thy heart and all thy soul. So we got to come back to these laws, statutes, and commandments, and also teach them to our children, right? That the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all nations, whether the Lord thy God has scattered thee. So God is going to grab us up, and from all these different nations that we were scattered through war, conquest, and the transatlantic slave trade. And if any of thy be driven to the outermost parts of heaven. So once again, here's that word heaven being in use of context of kingdom. So if we're somewhere far off and somewhere on this planet, whether we're in a remote island in the Pacific somewhere, that's what it means. It says, if any of thy be driven out from the outermost parts of heaven, from hence I will the Lord thy God gather thee from hence for hence will he fetch thee. So we see again, heaven is being described as a dominion, a place on earth, meaning kingdoms, right? Meaning a nation, right? So for the most part, all these nations have their own heaven because they're able to do what they want to do. But us Israelites, we don't have our own heaven. We're living in their heaven, chiefly their European heaven, right? Because they control everything. So he's saying in that day, because we all scatter everywhere, our diaspora is all over the earth. Even though majority of us came over here to North and South America, but we're everywhere. Any country you can think of, we're there. So he said he's going to scatter. He's going to gather us from from the furthest part of heaven. He's going to bring us in there. So if we was to take the Christian idea, context, that we're not in heaven. We're down here on earth. Because the context, when we just read it, that he said he's going to bring us from among these nations. So he's talking about these far off nations that's far from everything, right? So we see that. So we can see that what the context is and how the Bible says what heaven is compared to what we thought we learned in Christianity. So let's get Matthew 5, right? Let's go to the New Testament. Let's get Matthew 5 and 10. And it says, blessed are they which are persecuted for the righteousness sake, for there is the kingdom of heaven, right? So, because now this gonna get confusing for some, right? But once again, understanding in this context that the kingdom of heaven is talking about rulership, dominion, right? That's what it's talking about. So it says, "Blessed are they which are persecuted," and we are persecuted. We are the ones that's persecuted for righteousness' sake, for there is the kingdom of heaven, right? Just go to chapter 6 of the same book, right? Of Matthew, chapter 6, Matthew, verse 10. It says, "The kingdom come," or just start at the beginning. "After this manner, uh, pray." So this is when Jesus, Yahweh is telling the disciples how to pray. The Lord's Prayer that they will call it, right? It says, "After this manner, therefore, pray ye, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth." So his kingdom is going to come on earth. So you don't have to die and wait for a pie in the sky. The kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. That's what it says there. That's in the Lord's Prayer. So letting you know that the kingdom is going to be on earth as it is in heaven. So the same way how God rules in the heavens, he's going to have he's going to have rule on the planet because people is going to actually serve the real, true, living God, right? So we see that heaven again is still talking about earth and dominion, right? Let's get let's go to chapter 7, same book, Matthew 7:21. Now everyone that said unto me, Lord, Lord, shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of the Father which is in heaven. Uh, may also, let me see. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name, and thy name hath cast out devils, and in the name done away, in thy name done many wonderful works. And when I will, so basically, but the point is, we can finish reading it. Profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of iniquity. Therefore, whosoever uh, heareth these things of mine and doeth them, I will hearken unto them, unto a wise man which built his house upon a rock, right? So basically saying have a solid foundation, don't be out here, wishy-washy, thinking you're doing something, right? But back to the point why I brought us here was, it says, should not enter into the kingdom of heaven. So we understand that this kingdom of heaven is earthly dominion, right? And we're going to prove that further, right, as we go on. Because we don't just say things or make declarative statements and don't prove what we say, right? So we're going to, let's get Daniel 9, right? Let's go back to Daniel 9. And it says, "Behold," Daniel 7, verse 9. And be and beheld, I beheld the thrones were cast down. Right? So Daniel was seeing the vision of, of the end of this so-called kingdom, this world. It says, I beheld until the thrones were cast down, and the ancient of days did sit. So all these nations is done. There's no more presidents. There's no more prime ministers. No more governments that these other nations is running, because the Most High is here, and what He says goes. So everything y'all think y'all want to do, forget about it. That's basically what's happening here. I beheld, and the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head was as the pure wool, and his throne was like a fury, like a flame, like and his throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels was as burning fire, right? So now this is describing God, right? And describing God sitting on his throne above all these nations, right? So, like we read in the Lord's Prayer, thy kingdom come on earth, right? So we see the Most High on earth after all these nations is destroyed because of World War III, you know, brought to you by the Most High, says, and then it says, the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white. So people say, well, God is a spirit, but he has a garment on. He has clothes on. And he's sitting down. So that means he have a body. He has a butt. No homo. Pause. Right? He has a butt. So it says, and his hair was, on his head was pure wool. So he had woolly hair. Like we have woolly hair. So this is a black guy we're talking about. This man is a man with woolly hair. And we are the only people that have woolly textured hair. Right? So God is black. So not only is Jesus is black, of course, but the God is black. Right? So it says he has uh, uh, white as snow, and the hair on his head was like pure wool, and his throne was a fiery flame, with his wheels burning as fire. Right. So, like I said, so the point is, the Most High throne came to earth after all these nations was destroyed. Right. Because, like we just read in Matthew, let thy kingdom come on earth. Right. So we're seeing the picture here. Right. So hold on one second. It's a lot, right? Hold on one second. So yeah, right. So like I said, we see the kingdom coming to earth, right? And so let's go to Revelation real quick, the last book of the Bible, when the end all be all, right? So let's see what's going on here. Let's get Revelation 21. We're gonna start at 1. So it says, Revelation 21 and 1. I saw a new heaven and a new earth, and the first heaven and the first earth was passed away, and there were no more sea. Right? So now let's understand this, because this is written in allegory. When it says the new heaven and new earth, it's talking about new a new sheriff in town, a new regime is coming aboard. So the old ways of doing things is done. The Western European power structure is done. How they run the world is over with now. That's what it means by a new heaven and a new earth, meaning a new power, a new kingdom, no longer controlled by these people, right? Now it's controlled by Yahweh Shai, who the world calls Jesus, right? And and help being ran by us called Israelites. So it says, and I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth was passed away, and there was no more sea. Again, you got to understand these terminologies. In this context, the sea means nations, because we heard a phrase of a sea of people, right? Like when you used to go to the Taste of Chicago back in the day, it'd be like sometimes it'd be so packed, it'd be like hard to move through. You gotta hold hands, especially if you got a little child. Make sure your child don't get lost. It's called a sea of people. So it says, and no more sea, meaning these nations is not gonna be nations anymore. They're not gonna be able to just do their own thing like how we read in Daniel. See, it all comes together when you understand it properly. It all comes together. It says, um, there's reading one more time, and I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. So, like I said, that's talking about God's government being set up on a planet and being ran and operated, and then the old way of how things were is no longer being in effect. It's being taken out of power. That's why we read in Daniel where it says the Ancient of Days did sit, and the kingdoms of the earth were cast down. Meaning they have no more power. They're not going to be able to, you're not going to be worrying about what Putin is doing or Kim Jong Un is doing, or if Biden, still making dumbass mistakes. You're not going to be able to, because Howard Shaw is going to be running all that, right? So let's just jump down to verse 12, right? Let's jump down to verse 12, and it says, and so now it says, now we're talking about heaven, right? So it says, well, let me read two first. Let's go back up to verse 2 real quick to get a little context. And I, John, saw the holy city, the New Jerusalem, coming down from heaven, from God, built out of heaven, prepared for the bride's adorned for her husband, right? So now, like I said, you gotta understand this context. This new heaven, this new city is us, the people. We are Jerusalem, because we are a people before we are a place. So this is us. Because when you read Zechariah and other books, when World War III is going off, then we read it in Second Ezra and all that stuff, right? Second Ezra 14, right? So when you reread these things, um, we see that when this stuff is going off, that's why it's important to come back to the law, statutes, and commandments, because even though only a few of us actually going to start really trying to keep the commandments, but those few of us that do it, we're going to be saved from this nuclear war that's about to take place. So we're going to be taken up out of here. So then when all the smoke clears, then when John is talking about, he sees the new city coming down from God. That is us, the people. So it's not like how they will teach you in Christianity, like this big old giant cube falling from the sky, and that's the people. No, that's not what we're seeing here, right? That it sounds like that when you don't have the proper precepts to go along with it, and we're gonna show all that, right? Because like I said, I'm not gonna just say stuff to y'all and don't prove what I'm saying. So we're gonna go through all of that. So says, so I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. So that's us, right? Because Israel is considered the bride for Yahweh, right? So then, let's jump down to verse 12. And had a wall great and high. It says, matter of fact, let's start at 11. Let's start at 11. having the glory of God in her, the light was unto a stone of precious, of stones most precious. So now it's describing our land. You know what I'm saying? And how we gonna have it so hooked up? Y'all think what they doing over there in Dubai, building these smart cities and all this cool shit? You know, big old golden city and all that stuff that they ain't gonna have nothing on us. So it says, having the glory of God and the light was unto and was like unto a stone most precious, even like jasper stone, clear as crystal, and had a wall great and high, and had 12 gates. So now we're talking about how to enter into this city, right? Our land. So it had a wall great and high. What do you need a big tall wall for? To keep something in and keep something out, right? Then it has a gate to lock something in and to lock something out. So let's see who that is. In a gate with 12 angels. So now you have bouncers on this gate, on these on these gates. And the names written thereon. So now you got names that's written on these gates that of who can come in, right? Because just like how you have a mailbox outside your house, we have names on these gates. The names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. That's who can get into the kingdom. That's who the kingdom is for. The 12 tribes of Israel. Those are the names that's written on these gates, right? So as we can see that this is not a universal thing, right? That we all been taught that, oh, well, you know, as long as everybody believes in Jesus, it's all good. We just read right here. It says, it had a wall great and high, and 12 gates, and at the 12 gates 12 angels, and the name written thereon, which were the names of the 12 tribes of Israel. 12 tribes of the children of Israel. That's what it says. That's who it's for, right? Yes, prove that. Because, like I said, I don't say things that I can't prove. We're going to prove it with the scriptures. Let's go to Isaiah. Because we're going to see. Let's go to Isaiah real quick. Let's go to 14. Isaiah 14 and 2. We're going to start there. Then we're going to start there first. And it says, for the Lord will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land, like we're reading, right? And set them in their own land. And the strangers shall be joined with them. Because a lot of people, a lot of our, especially our people, when you tell them that we are the Israelites and God chose us, their first question is, what about white people? What about this and that? But they would never say that about you. Like, if somebody go and tell the Chinese person that you are the greatest people on the planet, God loves you, and he's gonna do something special for you. He's not gonna say, "Well, what about black people?" But we're such good people. We're such, you know, loving people that when somebody tell us that God only loves us and that we're special, we want to know about everybody else. But nobody does that, and that's why we don't have a Chinatown. That's why we don't have a Little Italy. That's why we don't have these things that all these other people have when they stick together, right? Because we want to bring everybody in with us when God only promised it to us. Let's read it again. For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land. And the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob, and the people shall take them and bring them to their place. So just like how we were taken, we're going to take them and bring them to our place. And the house of Israel shall possess them. Just like how we were possessed, we have European names, they're going to get possessed. That's called justice if you don't know. And the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and for handmaids. So yes, white people is going to be there, but what they're going to be? For servants and for handmaids. Just like when they brought us from the west coast of Africa, what were we? Servants and handmaids. Right? That's called a role reversal. That's called justice if we don't know. We serve a just God. You think these people can do what they did to us and nothing happened to them? They just get to ride out in the sunset? That's not how this goes. right? It says, and the people should take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel should possess them in the land of the Lord for service and for handmaids, and they should take them captive, who captives they were. So who were we captive to? We were captive to the British. We was captive to the Americans. We was captive to the Spanish. We was captive to the Chinese. We was captive to the Japanese. We was captive to the Arabs. We was captive to the Africans and many other people. And what it says? And they shall take them captive, who captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. That's what heaven is. Us in dominion, ruling the planet like the gods and the queens that we're supposed to be. Right? Let's prove that further. Because like I said, we're proving this. Let's go to let's go to Isaiah chapter 10. I mean Isaiah 60 and 10. My bad. Because this is stuff that they don't read to you in church. They're not going to read this to you in church because they want to preach a certain message, that's not in the Bible. You right? Because we're reading the words in the book. We're not making up stuff as we're reading it. We're reading it right here. And let's see what Isaiah 60 and 10 says. Because we read in Revelation that we're going to have a wall great and high with 12 gates. Let's see how we got that big, tall wall. So it says, this is Isaiah 60 and 10. And the strangers shall build up thy walls. So what do we read in Revelation 21? That we had a wall great and high with 12 gates. And it says, and the strangers shall build up thy walls, and their kings shall minister unto thee. So what is Donald Trump and all these other people going to be doing? They be cutting your grass. That's what they're going to be doing. They're going to be getting your water, getting your iced tea. That's what they're going to be doing. It says, and the sons of the strangers, which are people that's not Israelites, the sons of the strangers shall build up thy walls, and their kings shall minister unto thee. For my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor I have mercy on thee. So God said, in the time past, I allowed y'all to go through what y'all went through for these last 500 years, slavery, all that stuff, horrible, I get it. But now I'm going to reward y'all, right? So it says, therefore the gates shall be open continuously. They shall not be shut, nor day and night, that the man shall bring thee the forces of the Gentiles. So just like how we were talking earlier, how America sends billions and billions of dollars to Israel because they think that they are the real people. But it's telling you here that that's going to happen to us. All these different nations is going to pay tribute to us. They're going to have to, all their little hard earnings going to have to go to us. That's how it works. It says, therefore the gates shall be open continuously. They shall not be shut day nor night, that the men shall bring unto thee the forces of the Gentiles, and that their kings may be brought. For the nation and kingdom that would not serve thee. So these people have to serve us. Like we read in Revelation 3 and 9, that God is going to make them bow down at our feet, right? We read that. Revelation 3 and 9, if you don't believe me. For the nation and kingdom that will not serve thee, talking about the Israelites, shall perish. Yeah, those nations shall be utterly wasted. So if they don't want to get down, then they're going to lay down. That's what God said, right? We're reading the Bible here. We're just reading the words on the book, and we're seeing what it says, and we're understanding how it applies to us, right? So that's how it goes. Let's go to Jeremiah 16 real quick. I'm sorry, Jeremiah 30 and 16. Jeremiah 30 and 16. For therefore all they that devour thee shall be devoured. So who has devoured us? All these other nations that robbed and stole and killed our ancestors and us, they devoured us. They came together collectively, as you can read in the book of Psalms 83. They came collectively to put us in this state that we're in, right? Sure, you have your Michael Jordans, your Oprah Winfrey's, your LeBron James, but collectively, our people are not where we're supposed to be. We're not respected. You know, no matter where we go, they treat us certain type of ways. Last fire, last first fire, last hire. You know what I'm saying? Discriminated against, all the stuff that we go through. So it says, therefore, all they that devour thee shall be devoured, and all thy adversaries, every one of them, should go into captivity. Just like how we read in Isaiah 14 and 2, that we would take them captive, who captives we were. So it says, therefore, all they that devour these shall be devoured, and their adversaries, every one of them, shall go into captivity, and they that spoil thee shall be spoiled, and they that prey upon thee will I give for a prey. That is called justice, right? That's the God we serve, a God of justice that's going to pay us back for everything that we've been through. That's going to make sure we're straight for everything that we've been through and make those people pay for what all the stuff that they have done to us throughout the years. To think that God is not going to do anything about that, you have to be mentally destroyed to think that God is just going to be cool with all that. Everything, knowing the history of our people, since we've been on this side of the world, to think that God is not going to do anything about that, something had to be wrong with your medulla oblongata. That's just simple as that. And I'm only saying that because I know I have conversations with people, and I see that a lot of our people don't know what justice is. They think that God is going to this all loving God, and they forgot that God flooded the whole world and killed everybody but eight. They forgot that God killed all the firstborn Egyptians. Okay, it's a lot of things that God did in the Bible that people just gloss over, right? So we got to understand these things, right? And because, like I said, you're not gonna understand it going to that building that they call a church and pastor in there stealing your money and trying to have sex with your woman. You're probably touching on your kid, right? You're not gonna get that there. Here you get the truth, the unbiased truth. I'm not gonna soften it up because I'm like, well, I don't know if they're gonna like this part, so I'm not gonna read that. No, we're gonna read the whole thing, and we're gonna make it make sense. So just get Second Thessalonians real quick. Just jump back to our the Second Thessalonians. Bear with me real quick. All right, here we go. Right here, Second Thessalonians is get 1 and 6. Because we don't understand that we serve a God of justice. It says Second Thessalonians chapter 1 verse 6. Seeing it is a righteous thing with God, not me that's saying it. Don't just take that I'm saying it. What it says, seeing that it is a righteous thing with God to recompense tribulation to them that trouble you. So God said it's a righteous thing for him to pay these people back for what they did to us. Not me. So I might be fired up about it, but I'm just reading the Bible, and we read it right here. Seeing that it's a righteous thing with God to recompense, meaning to pay back tribulations to them that trouble you, and to you who are troubled, rest with us when when the Lord Jesus shall reveal uh, from heaven with his mighty angels. Shall be revealed from heaven. So, like I said, when Jesus come back with them angels, it's gonna be on and popping, and he's coming back when his World War III kicks off. That's what happened. Well, not exactly when it kicks off, but in the middle of its doing what it's doing. So that's what's happening there. So God said it's a righteous thing to pay these people back for what they did to us. And you don't want that get back. You don't want everything that your ancestors went through for the last 5 to 600 years. You don't want to see You just want to just let bygones be bygones? That's crazy. You don't even do that to your own family. You don't even do that to people that you see every day. Like somebody can look at you wrong, and you say, "Oh, I don't like that person." I want to. Next time I see him, I'm gonna fight him. You know what I'm saying? Somebody accidentally bumped you. You want to curse them out and perhaps kill them. But the people that did this to your ancestors, you don't feel no type of way. That's insanity. That we would be so quick to hurt each other, so quick to not deal with each other, so quick to try to X each other out. But when those people do it, it's cool. Don't say nothing to them. But God says, seeing it's a righteous thing with God to recompense tribulation to them that trouble you. Right? Let's get Isaiah 4 real quick. Let's go back to Isaiah. So we see it even says it in the New Testament. Because I know some people will say, well, that's the Old Testament. We read several verses out of the New Testament that says the same thing. And that one just came out of the New Testament. Second Thessalonians. Let's get Isaiah. And I'm only, like I said, I'm only saying it like the way I'm saying it. Because I know, like I said, I have conversations with people. And of course, I mean, I talk to a lot of people. And people would tell you when we talk, we have peaceful conversations. I don't, I'm only because I'm doing this because I have to break that spell that's on our people that that's brainwashed to that thing, and I have to bring it to you straight. You know what I'm saying? To let you know that no, that's not what it is. But like I said, I'm always willing to talk. Always hit me up on Messenger or whatever. Ask questions, whatever you want to say. We can always have a peaceful discussion. And like the scripture say, come let us reason together, right? So let's get Isaiah 4 and verse 3. And it shall come to pass, and it shall come to pass, where am I? Yeah, okay, yeah, verse 3. And it shall come to pass that he that is left in Zion, and he that remaineth in Jerusalem shall be called holy, right? So then it says, even everyone that is written among the living in Jerusalem, right? When the Lord, have washed away the filth of the daughters of Zion, and shall purge out the blood of Jerusalem from the midst thereof by the spirit of judgment, in the spirit of burning. That burning is the nuclear fire, right? And so we see that God is going to purify us because we are the Jerusalem. We are the Zion. Because, like I said, we are a people before we are a place, right? So we are those people, right? Let's get Acts. Back to the New Testament. Let's get Acts. Because again, because we got to understand that our people knew what heaven was. Our ancestors knew. When I say ancestors, I'm talking about our biblical ancestors. They knew what heaven was. Let's get Acts the first chapter and start at verse 6. It says, so this is Acts 6. So this is after the death and resurrection of Yahushua, who the world calls Jesus. And that he appeared to the disciples after he was resurrected. And they said, when they there, this is verse 6, when they thereof were came into, when they, let me read it right, when they therefore were come together, they asked him, saying, Lord, will thou build at this time and restore again the kingdom to Israel? So they understood that they didn't have to die to go to heaven, because they asking Jesus right now after he resurrected, because he died and he resurrected, so now he's appearing to them. So now they ask him like, all right, is it this time we're gonna establish the kingdom, right? So we have to understand what that is, the kingdom, right? So because like I said, the disciples is asking them. It says, Read it one more time. When thou therefore were come to when they therefore were come together, they asked him, saying, Lord, wilt thou at this time restore again the kingdom of Israel? Right? That's what heaven is, the kingdom of Israel. Right? And the disciples, like I said, they understood that. That's why they're asking Jesus when they see him. They're not dead when they're asking Jesus. They're in their fleshly bodies, and they're saying, "Is it time for the kingdom yet?" So they understood you didn't have to die and go to some pie in the sky. So we have to understand that we've been all this time that we think we've been learning the Bible, we actually been learning Greek mythology, Roman mythology is what we've been learning. You see why they said that? Let's get Daniel 7 and 12. Right, that's when I want. No, 7 and 18. Daniel 7 and 18. But the saints of the Most High, which is the Israelites, shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever and ever and ever. Right? So that's what it is. Because they like, is it time for us to take the kingdom? Should we get our weapons ready? Should we go clean our gun? So they asking Jesus that. Because right here in Daniel it says, but the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever and ever and ever. Right? So they understood that. That's why they asked him, are you now about to establish the kingdom? Because they thought it was wartime when they seen Jesus. But that's because we understood the scriptures here. Right? We understood that there's no, when you, like I said, when you think about dying and going to heaven and hell, you are actually following Greek mythology and Roman mythology. Right? Because that is not any concept that you will find in the Bible. And we demonstrated that, throughout this whole thing, right? And we just read right here how we're going to take the kingdom, right? And when you take something, you're taking it by force. Like if I just grab this up, I took it, right? Only way I'm not going to take it is somebody stop me from taking it. So, but nobody's going to stop us from taking this kingdom, right? All we have to do is come back to the law, statutes, and commandments and keep the faith, because we have a God that fight for us, right? We have to understand that, right? So let's get let's see how far we can get with this though. I don't know if we're gonna finish this whole thing, but we're gonna see how far we can get with it. So let's go to Revelation, right? Should I, I might just go to the battery die, but let's go Revelation 22 and 15, right? And it says, for without are dogs and sorcerers and whoremongers and murderers and idolaters who whosoever love to make a lie, right? And it says, and Jesus, right? So those are like a lot of times when people would, okay, that's why I read that. So people would read, they would go to church and say, make it seem like, okay, like we demonstrated that we would have to die, but then and they'll read a verse like this and say, well, yeah, if you're this type of person, when you die, you're not gonna go to heaven, right? But we just read that the disciples were alive and breathing when we read in Acts 1 and 6, when they asked Jesus, "Is it time for the kingdom now?" Because they thought Jesus was coming back for war after the resurrection. Then we read in Daniel that we're gonna take it, right? So let's get So they would read that verse and it would make it seem like you know. I mean, not to say that you should live your life this way, of course not. But the point being is that you don't it's not something that happens, when you die or nothing like that. 'Cause like I said, if you've been watching the whole thing, you see we've been proving that, right? Let's get Revelation 5 and 10 real quick. So Revelation 5 and 10, it says, "And has made us unto our God, kings and priests, and we shall reign on earth again." So you don't have to die, because it says, "And has made us unto our God kings and kings and priests, and we shall reign on earth, right? So that's where our heaven is going to be on earth, like we demonstrated when you say the Lord's Prayer, Our Father who art in heaven, right? Then it says, let thy will be done, let thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. So the same way how God, uh, runs the whole heaven thing, it's going to be ran the same way on earth because it says, has made have made us unto our God kings and priests, and we shall reign on the earth. Right? Simple. So then let's go to Psalms 72 real quick. Hold on 1 second, y'all. So let's get Psalm 72 real quick, right? 72 and 8, right? So Psalm 72 and 8 says, He has dominion also from the sea to sea and from the river and in the ends of the earth, right? So that's heaven, dominion. And this is talking about a king, right? When you read up to verse 1 in Psalms 72, it tells you it's talking about give the king thy judgments, oh God. So it's talking about a king, right? But we just picked it up at verse 8 where it says, he should have dominion also from sea to sea and from the river unto the ends of the earth, right? That's dominion, heaven, right? That's how it goes. Let's get Revelation 21 and 1. I think we read it already, but we're going to read it again. We're going to get it again. So it says, and I saw that a new heaven and a new earth. This is Revelation 21 and 1. I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first earth and the first for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away. There were no more sea. Right? Again, so this is talking about how this current rulership that's on the planet, this Western European power structure that's running everything, this is their heaven, and that they're not going to no longer be in power like we precepted with Daniel 9 and Daniel 7 and 9, where it says that all the thrones of earth was cast down, meaning all the governments was taken out of power. There wasn't no prime ministers, no presidents, no Bishop Tutu, none of that stuff was happening, right? Because God was running everything. God had came here and He's overseeing all this stuff. So the governments ain't got to do nothing because they're gonna do what God tell them to do, right? So that's what it means by the new heaven and the new earth. And that new heaven and new earth is that new rulership, that new governmental system that's going to be implemented on this earth through the Mashiach Yahweh and by the Abba Yahweh, right? Meaning the Messiah, uh, Jesus, and the Father, God, right? And how in English, right? So let's get let's go to Luke real quick. Let's go to Luke 17, right? Luke 17 to 21, right? He says, now this is Yahweh talking to the disciples, and he's saying, neither shall they say, lo there, or lo there, or here, or lo there, for behold, the kingdom of God is within you. So we can manifest this kingdom. All we have to do is stop the bull stuff and the hating that goes amongst us, you know, the backstabbing, the jealousy, the envy, and keep these laws, statutes, and commandments and come together as people and we can manifest this kingdom. And it tells you as we're waking up, like we read in Deuteronomy 30 and 1, as we waking up, the stuff that we're going through, God is going to take everything that we've been through and make the other nations go through it. You know, so that's why it says, "Behold, the kingdom of God is within you." Right? So we can manifest our heaven. All we have to do is show that brotherly, sisterly love amongst ourselves. Right? Keep these laws that we were commanded to keep. Right? And we can manifest this thing, because then we can have a Chinatown. You know, or how they have a little Italy. We can have our own little community that's ran by us, our own banks, our own grocery stores, our own everything. Why? Because it says, "Behold, the kingdom of God is within you." So, like I said, we can manifest these things, right? But we have to stop the bullshit amongst ourselves. Quit the killing and stealing and the robbing and the hating and the cheating and trying to finesse each other. For we can manifest this heaven amongst ourselves, right? Let's get Revelation 11 and 15. So Revelation 11 and 15 says, the, the seven angels sound, and there were a great voice in heaven saying, "The kingdoms of this world and the kingdoms of this world and the let me read it right. The kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord." So, like I said, so God is gonna. Is, that's why you can't. That's why I tell people you can't say you love God and you love Jesus, but you're praying for America, because we see right here that the kingdoms of this world has become the Lord. So there's not going to be no more government stuff being running countries on how they want to run countries. You're gonna have to run it. Thus said the Lord. You can't say just pray for world peace and everybody get along if you say you love God and Jesus, because that's not in the plan. Because it says the seven angels sound, and there were a voice in heaven saying, "The kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever." Meaning he's going to run this thing. He's going to be the head honcho. So all this whole everything is not going to matter anymore, because they're not going to have no say so. They're going to have to do what Jesus tell them to do. So you can't say you want Jesus to come back and say save America, because it doesn't work that way. You can't have what the Bible says. You can't serve two masters, right? Either you're going to love one and hate the other. So you can't serve two masters. So, but in church, they'll have you thinking that, oh well, we gotta pray for the wealth of America. Pray that everything get back to normal. It's not gonna get back to normal. Everything is. Don't y'all see that everything is escalating? Right? People thought that Russia and Ukraine stuff was just gonna be something that's going on for like a week or two. No, it's going on 3 years, and it's only getting worse. More countries is getting involved. The line in the sand is being drawn. Countries are picking sides, right? So it's only going to get worse, because that's biblical prophecy. It's like a snowball effect. Once a snowball starts rolling, you're not going to be able to stop it, because it's going to build up steam and keep going, right? So we got to understand these things, So it's read it again. The seven angel sound in the sounded, and there were a great voice in heaven saying, "The kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our God and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever." So that's what is coming to this place. God reigning forever and forever. Yahweh Shai reigning forever and forever. Let's get Revelation 19 and 12. Right? So it says, "His eyes were as a flame of fire, and his head were many crowns." Like we said, he got many crowns on his head. Why he got these crowns on his head? Because he took down world governments. There's no more such thing as presidents and prime ministers and all that other stuff that they call themselves. He took their crown. Just like when you playing chess and you knock the king down, you take the crown. Or was it checkers when they say crown me or something like that? I don't know. I haven't played checkers in a while. But that's what we're seeing. It says, his eyes were a flame of fire, and his head were many crowns. Many crowns because he took down these governments, he took down these nations of people, and they no longer have a say so. They no longer have a anything to do with anything. They're all in a position of servitude, like we read in the book of Isaiah 14, and in the book of Isaiah chapter 60, verse 10, right? We read these things. So like you said, we're proving what we're saying. You know what I'm saying? We're not just saying some stuff just to sound mean. Because the Bible actually backs it up. The Bible says these things. So either we're going to believe the Bible or not. Like I was telling somebody that yesterday, you can't pick and choose what part of the Bible you want to believe. You can't treat the Bible like it's a buffet where you're just going to take this and you're going to take that. I'm not going to take that. I'm going to leave that there. You have to take it all together because that's how this thing is constructed. That's why Jesus said, not Jesus, that's why it tells you to eat the whole roll. Meaning, take the whole scroll and in its totality. You think when I first started learning what's going on, I mean, I had to understand, like, well, damn, it says what it says. And I knew that I couldn't pick and choose what I want to believe because then I don't believe in the Bible no more. You can't say, well, I believe in the Bible, but this or but that. Then you don't really believe because now you're picking and choosing and trying to tailor it to what you think it should say. But it says what it says, right? So let's go to Daniel real quick. Let's go to Daniel 5:24. So it says, then was so Daniel 5:24. Then was the part of the hand sent from him, in the writing, and writing was, excuse me, uh, and this is the writing that was written, uh, mean, 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 tekel, uh, up hasharin. This is the interpretation of the thing mean. So now this is where that phrase comes from too, a writing on the wall. Cause this is uh, one of the kings of Persia, I believe, and so he's seen a vision of a writing on the wall, right? And so this is where that phrase comes to, writing is on the wall, right? It comes from here, the book of Daniel. So let's see what was being written, right? It says this is the interpretation of the thing. Mean, God has numbered thy kingdom and finished it. So it says, uh, uh, tekel, thou art weighed in the balance and art found wanting. Perez, thy kingdom is divided, given to the Medes and the Persians. Okay, no, this was King Nebuchadnezzar. My bad. This is Nebuchadnezzar. So this is right before the Persians took over. So God is sending a message through Daniel, letting the Babylonian king know, I'm getting ready to take your kingdom from you and give it to the Persians. But that's how God does. And that's why it tells you in the book of Exodus that God is a man of war. Right? So God operate like, like we're like his toy soldiers. You know what I'm saying? Like I explained one time, he raised up one nation, make them strong and powerful, then raise up another nation to take them down. Then he raised up another nation, make them strong, to take that other nation that he just made strong and powerful down. That's what he does. That's what we're witnessing right now. Russia is getting to their glory, right? They fell off after the Cold War and when the Soviets split up. Now they're raising back up and became a superpower. America is that light on that shiny hill that is going to be destroyed by Russia. Then after Russia does what he does, then Yahweh Jesus, is going to do what he does and take him down by using us. And we read that in the book of Ezra, right? So that's how God operates. He raised up one kingdom, just and then after he get tired of them, he raised up another kingdom to destroy that kingdom. So how can we say that God is all love when we see how he operates here? Right? Of course, he loved his people, he loved the Israelites, but you cannot read this book and find where God demonstrates love for any other nation other than the people of Israel. I challenge you, anybody that's listening, I challenge you $1,000 to show where God, you know, expresses love for anybody else outside of Israel. Show me where he does anything meaningful for anybody outside of Israel. $1,000, right? It says, for thy kingdom is divided in the Medes and the Persians. Then commanded Belshazzar, and they clothed Daniel with a scarlet and put a chain of gold up, up, about his neck and made a proclamation concerning him that he should be third ruler in the kingdom. So Nebuchadnezzar was like, all right, dang, Daniel was wise. God speaks to him, and so I'm gonna make him third in command of Babylon, right? Keep in mind, Daniel was still a slave. This is when the Israelites were taken into slavery to Babylon. So Daniel's still a slave. And when you read Daniel don't get puffed up because now he's like third in command. He still recognized that he's a slave because his people are enslaved. But you got our people here in America, they get a few dollars in their pocket. They move to a certain type of neighborhood. They think it's all good now. We forget that what's really going on here. Our brother Daniel never forgot what was going on. Daniel knew that, yeah, he might be third in charge in Babylon right now, but he know how he got there. He know that he came there in chains. His people came there in chains and shackles. So he didn't forget that, right? Then then it says boom boom boom. Yeah, so he made him third and a third ruler, right? So just get let me keep reading. Then it says in the night in that night was Belshazzar the king of the Chaldeans slain, and Darius the Medes took over the kingdom, being about three score and 2 years old, right? So then right after that, Daniel gave that prophecy to the king of Babylon, he was killed, and then you know then Darius took over from the Persians, and we know Darius is a famous king throughout history. So this is how we know that the Bible is a history book. Scholars would say the Bible is 98% accurate when it comes to recalling historical events, right? So that's why we can trust the Bible, because the Bible tells you what happened throughout history. Then we can go back, by us living in the time we live in now, we can go back and see the things that the Bible spoke of, right? So let's go to Psalms real quick. Let's go to Psalms. Where I want Psalms 2. Let's go to Psalms 2 and 7, right? Psalms 2 and 7. I will declare the decree that the Lord have said unto me, Thou art my son, this day I have begotten thee. Right? So, like I said, we are his sons, the Israelites, right? They call us his firstborn. It says, Ask of me, and I shall give thee the heathen for thy inheritance. Right? So we gotta once again we're getting back onto this whole kingdom and dominion things because we see that God put people in power. He take people out of power. He put people in power, like he just put Darius in power that we read about in Daniel. So it says, and read it again. I will declare, I will declare the decree. The Yahweh have said unto me, Thou art my son. This day have I begotten thee. Talking about the Israelites. Ask me, and I shall give thee the heathen for thy inheritance. So God is saying, I will put these other nations as make these other nations serve you. Just ask it. Just tell me to do it. Please ask me to do it. I will do it. That's what God's saying. But you have some little Negroes that's going around that don't want the benefits and the gifts of God of having these other nations in servitude after they done had us in servitude and continue to have us in servitude. That's why we got to punch in on their clocks, right? So our people don't want real justice. They just want to be equal to some people that God clearly told us that we're better than. When you read Deuteronomy 7 and 6, right? So ask me, and I shall give thee the heathen for inheritance, and the other the othermost parts of earth for thy possession. Thou shalt break them with a rod of iron. Thou shalt dash them to pieces like a potter's vessel. That's what God's saying. He, he will allow us to do to these other nations, right? So let's get Revelation 2 real quick. So we got to understand this is how our rulership goes. Our rulership is us in total dominion, putting these people into subjugation. Subjugation, right? So let's get Revelation 2 and 26. He that overcometh, now this is Jesus talking, right? Yahweh Shai. He that overcometh my works unto the end, to him I will give power over the nations, and he shall rule them with an iron rod, as the vessel of a potter shall they be broken to shivers, even as I received of my Father. So Jesus said the same power that God has given him to be destroyer of worlds and the conquest, he's gonna give that to us. Right? That's the gift from heaven, from God. But a lot of our people don't want that because they want to be equal to these people. They want to prove to these people that they're worthy to be equal to them. How long are we going to do that? We've been doing that for 500 years. We've been marching and singing, hoping and praying that these people are going to change their ways. They are who we think they are. Like the Browns coach said that one year, they are who we think they are, damn it. That's who they are. They are who we think they are. They're not going to change. They will never, 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 never change. Like that Jay-Z song. Never change. They will never change. They are who we think they are, right? Let's get Malachi real quick. We almost done here. I didn't think I was gonna be able to get through all of it, but damn. But I'm moving a little quicker though. Let's get let's get Micah. Matter of fact, I think it's Micah I want. Okay, Micah. Never, never, never change. Now that song's stuck in my head now. Never change. Alright, let's get Micah 4 and 8. And it says, And thou, O tower of the flock, the stronghold of the daughter of Zion, until thee shall it come, even the first dominion, the kingdom shall come to the daughter of Jerusalem. That's who the kingdom is for, the daughters of Jerusalem. Who is that? That is us, the Israelites, right? So we see it again. That he that overcometh, he's going to give power over the nations, right? So it can't be talking about everybody. It's talking about us, and we're seeing that, right? So it says, Let me read it one more time. And thou, O tower of flock, the stronghold of the daughter of Zion, unto thee shall it come, even the first dominion. The kingdom shall come to the daughter of Zion. Right? That's what happens. It's gonna come to us. That's what the kingdom is for. Right? That's what the kingdom is for. Hold on one second. I gotta do it like this because I ain't got my other phone with me. But now let's get second Ezra's, right? We gotta understand what is the thing, the whole thing, right? Let's get second Ezra's. Let's get second Ezra's. We're gonna start at 55. Second Ezra 6 and 55. All this I have spoken before thee, O Lord, because thou hast made the world for our sakes. Right? Like we just read here, it says, even the first dominion, the kingdom shall come to the daughter of Jerusalem, which is us. So then we read in Second Ezra, all this I have spoken before thee, O Lord, because thou hast made the world for our sakes. As for the other people, because again, I know our people love asking about a master. Whenever you tell our people we are the greatest, baddest people on the planet, we all want to know about master. Well, what happened to master? How is master fit into this? But nobody does that for us. Nobody, when the Asians got that Asian hate, stop Asian hate bill passed, the Asians then say, well, what about black people? Black people have been here for 500 years, going through all this horrible stuff. Where's their hate bill at? Where's their reparations? They didn't say that. When a Jew-ish people got their reparations, they didn't say, well, you know who else should get reparations? Those black people. They didn't say that. But we say those things because we're destroyed mentally. We don't know how to love each other. We're so concerned about everyone else but our own people and our own self. So it says, all this I have spoken before thee, O Lord, because thou hast made the world for our sakes. As for the other people which also come from Adam, thou hast said that they are nothing. What did God say about them? They are nothing, but be like unto spittle, and has likened them to the abundance of them that drop from abundance of them, a drop that fall from a vessel. So God is like they're like a dripping faucet. No, they're like a you have a gallon of water, and then the water is coming out, right? Or the water drips, a little drip come out the water, a couple little drips come from the gallon of water. You're not thinking about that because you still have a whole gallon of water. So that's what God felt about these people. We're not thinking about them. They're like a little drop to him. Or like you filling up a water balloon and you got the water balloon to where you want it, then you tie it up. Then as you tie it up, a little water come out. You're not concerned about that because now you got you a full water balloon that you can throw and do whatever you want with it. That's how God feel about these people. It says, as for the other people that also come from Adam, thou hast said that they are nothing, but be like unto spittle, and has likened them to abundance, unto a drop that falleth from a vessel. Right? That's how God feel about them. They're like you stuff that you like dust. When you see something dusty, you just blow it and wipe it off. Or like for the people in the streets, when you have shake on the scale, you might just blow the shake off, or you can put whatever you're trying to measure on the scale. You know what I'm saying? You don't think about that, right? So that's how God is. He don't think about them people. He said they are nothing. Then when you read Isaiah 40 and 17, he calls them less than nothing. What's less than nothing? That's a negative number when you're dealing with math, right? So we got to understand the God that we serve and what's going on here, right? Let's get Daniel 14 and Daniel 4 and 14. So we see what's going on, So we once we understand this Bible in the proper context, it makes more sense, and we see why we know that this book is only for us. And yesterday, even if we don't know, even if we haven't came to that logic conclusion, we can read and deduct the fact that this Bible is definitely written for a group of people and it's not universal because the stuff that we're reading does not sound universal, especially the one that we just read that everybody else outside of Israel are nothing, right? This is Daniel 4 and 14. So this is, like I said, we're getting a glimpse of how what the kingdom looked like with us in rulership, the other people being in servitude, right? So it says, and he cried, Daniel 4 and 14, and he cried out loud and said, "Thus he knew he's down the tree." Wait, let me read it right. He cried out loud and said, "Thus hew down the tree and cut off the branches, shake off the leaves, and scatter his fruit, lest the beasts get away from under it and the fowls of the branches." Right. So talking about these other nations, unless these other nations, overtake us and all that stuff, says, but nevertheless leaves the stump of his root in the earth, even as the band of iron and brass and the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with dew of heaven, and let his portion be with the beasts in the grass of the earth. Right? So his portion is the Israelites, right? So we get the whole earth, right? So we gotta understand that this whole earth is for us. Right? Let's get Psalm 72 and 8. 72 and 8. We read this before, but we're gonna read it again. 72 and 8 says, "He shall have dominion also from the sea to sea, and from the river unto the ends of the earth." Right? So we're gonna have dominion. That's why it says in Daniel 4 and 14 about us being with the beasts of the earth. And the beasts of the earth is the other nations. Like I said, then again, that's another allegorical way of speaking about people. It's calling the other people beasts, right? So we see, like I said, it says, "He shall have dominion also from sea to sea, and from the river unto the ends of the earth." Right? That's what's going to happen, right? And let's get Ecclesiastes. So we gotta, like I said, we understand this. We see what's the dealio. We see that it's all about us, right? And because that's what the kingdom is consists of. The Israelites ruling everything. You know, because we always say that we the kings, we're the original people, but we don't understand how that. We say it, but we don't really understand that it's a real thing. We just say this stuff because it sounds cool, but it's a real thing. This Ecclesiastes 10. If the iron is blunt and he do not will the edge, must he put more strength. Must he put more strength? But the wisdom is profitable to direct, right? So that's the thing. We have to have wisdom, and you get that wisdom through keeping the law, statutes, and commandments and a healthy fear of Yahweh, right? So that's what it's all about. So we got to understand these things. Let me see what this says too. But yeah, we got to. So like I said, we see these things. So it says he, boom, boom, boom. Let me jump up to 8. He that diggeth a pit and fall into it, and also breaketh the hedge, the serpent shall bite him. So that a hedge is for protection. A hedge is like a fence, right? So it's saying when you lose your protection, then that serpent will bite you. Meaning when you no longer protected, that's when certain troubles come in. That's when certain hellish conditions can come in. So that's why we have to keep our keep on the straight and narrow, keep the laws and statutes and commandments. So we can have that hedge of protection, right? So we can keep that protection. So God can see us through whatever we're going through. Because a lot of times, that's why I tell you that when we're going through certain things, God will not, put us in situations that He's not going to give us a way out, right? So where it says that He will not tempt us with stuff that He's not going to give us a way out of that temptation, right? But what happens a lot of times, our people, we go through a lot of stuff, and then as we're going through stuff, it'd be so crazy that our minds be so cloggy that we can't, we can't see, a way out. You know what I'm saying? We don't see, like, dang, we don't slow down and just think, like, okay, it got to be a logical way out of this. Because sometimes when we get into trouble, we so in a rush to get out of things. You know what I'm saying? We so in a rush to try to fix whatever's wrong. The Bible says, don't be in a rush to get out of trouble. Because when you're in that rush to get out of trouble, sometimes you end up into either deeper trouble or a whole nother trouble. So that's why it's important when you're going through things, just be patient. Just take your time, figure out what's going on, why you got here, how did you get here. Then think about the logical ways that how you can get out of it. It might take a while, so what? But you got to understand that it's better than trying to rush and to try to put a band-aid over something, you know, when you really need surgery. So you need to take time to figure this stuff out, and then, because like I said, it's a lesson in everything. You got to be able to see the lesson just because you're going through some shit, and it's so horrible, everything is bad. It's a lesson to be learned. That's why whenever I go through stuff, no matter what it is, I take time and I say, all right, this is messed up. What do you want me to learn from this? You know what I'm saying? Instead of, and that's a different way of thinking rather than just going crazy when stuff happens and trying to, do this and do that to try to get out of something. Because like I said, God is bring you through certain things to teach lessons, to make you stronger, to give you what they say character. You know what I'm saying? Like, to make you be able to handle certain situations, because it might be an even worse situation coming your way down the line. And if you rushing to get out of this situation, then when that next big situation comes, you're not going to be prepared adequately enough to face that. You're going to be running like a chicken with its head cut off. I mean, we all seen people like that. When stuff happens, they just go crazy. Or you can be at work, just for even on a small scale, at work, and you have a supervisor or a manager. When they're under pressure, they make everybody else feel like they're under pressure. They just go crazy. They be saying stuff. They be telling you about 50, 11 things to do. And you're like, I can't do all of that because that doesn't make sense. So it's people like that. When they're under pressure, they make everybody else around them feel the pressure. But we should not be that way. We have to learn how to take it easy and relax and find the logical way how to handle whatever we're going through. Right? So, so that's what we got to, get in the habit of. Because there's always a way out of things. There's always a way out. It might not seem like it, but it's always a way out. But we have to not go in it with a clouded judgment, and our judgment is clouded because we're looking at the stuff that's in front of us. We're not seeing what's behind that. You know what I'm saying? And what's behind that is a way out. So with that, I hope everybody got a better understanding of this whole concept of, heaven and hell, and then also we kind of went through like the whole life cycle of things, how we, in the first part. So I hope we got a better understanding, and this was edifying, and people can, we can grow as a people, right? And then we can, learn how to deal with situations better, learn how to deal with things without being so emotional when dealing with things. I mean, So we gotta understand these things because things happen. Long as you got blood in your body and your heart is beating, stuff is gonna happen. But it's all about how you deal with the stuff that happens, right? So again, I say shalom, peace. Hopefully we help somebody, and that's it. I'm out.